Welcome back to the Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al and my co-host, Alan Adams. We got to get into this. So looking at the Clemson position grade. So we go position by position, and we're going to talk about each position and what we give their grades on. So we're grading them just like we do in school, just like they do in school, based on their performance from that specific game. Not overall in the season, but just from the UNC game. I'm going to start us off with the quarterback. I know I'm going to get some backlash here. But I'm going to give Trevor Lawrence a C for his performance against the Tar Heels. Looking down, his first option a lot of times, looking only on one side of the field, missing some wide open players, throwing deep a lot. Now, I can blame, the play calling too. So I think it's 50-50. It's not all Trevor's fault. And I hate to beat him up because I love him. I mean, let me tell you, we're doing this constructive feedback here, right? But throwing to the sideline a lot. I want to give him an A in something else. Can I give him an A in something else?
Sure, go for it. You're the host.
So I want to give him an A in the run game. I mean, if it wasn't for Trevor Lawrence's run game, the longest run for the team was 16 yards. He had 4.1 yards per carry. If it wasn't for Trevor's crucial run game in crucial spots during the game, Clemson might not have came out with a win.
I gave him a B minus. I thought he played a pretty decent game under pretty consistent pressure all night. They were throwing some crazy blitzes and a lot of stunts at the offensive line there. And, he wasn't getting a lot of help from our offensive line. He wasn't getting a lot of help from ETN blocking, I didn't think. Had some overthrows on receivers. Like you said, he's looking at one side of the field a lot. You can question the play calling as well. It's funny you mentioned about, he always wanted to go deep and on 3rd and 6 or something like that. I remember we got into several 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 situations. I'm like, just please remember that we only need 5 or 6 yards. And it seemed like every time they would throw deep, and it just bothered the heck out of me. But, we're just all waiting to see the superhuman Trevor that we saw last year.
Running back, I'm giving Travis Etienne a C as well, so 2 C's for me. Normally I'm the lenient grader here, but I started to push a little bit further on test my grading skills a little bit more. Etienne could not run to the right. Now, I don't think it was his fault. We'll talk about that in 3 positions from now. I don't think it was his fault, but he did really well running to the left. If you look at it, most of his yards came from running to the left-hand side of the field, whether it was the A gap to the left or the B gap or even off tackle. He did pretty well there. Pass protection, there were a couple of pass protection times where you have to give a lot of credit to the Tar Heels for sure for mixing up the blitzes. It was almost like the Tar Heels pulled a Brent Venables on Clemson. It was kind of crazy. They were blitzing from all over the place, and they were overloading one side of the offensive line and tricking the running back, and Travis Etienne was kind of looking around, kind of lost on a couple of plays. He was late on a couple of blocks. I didn't see him miss one completely, but he was late on a couple of blocks. Lindsey Dixon, I mean, did he even play? Yeah, he had 4 carries.
Mm-hmm.
He had 5 yards per carry, Al.
Yeah.
But then only 4 carries?
Yeah, I gave the running backs a C+. That's kind of been a point of interest this year. People think they're not going to ETN enough or not, using Lindsey Dixon as well. And I would have to agree, they had, good yards per carry in this game for the most part. So I'm not really sure why they weren't used more, especially with the passing struggles we kind of had. He did all right running the football. His pass blocking, like you said, left a lot to be desired. It looks to me like even though it wasn't all his fault, it looks like the offensive line was missing some assignments and, linebackers were running free right at Travis Etienne. That's, when they've got a, 5-7 yard head start, that's tough to stop. So I gave the running back a C+.
Yeah. Over to the wide receivers, I think a lot of people are going to expect me to beat them up. I think that they did pretty well. They ran the routes that they were supposed to. They didn't seem to be confused. If you look at it, Higgins, 21.5 yards per play or per catch. Ross, 15.7 yards per catch. I mean, those are great numbers for wide receivers. They just were very frustrated all game. Amari Rodgers, had some difficulty. The middle of the field, again, there were some plays it was completely ignored because of the play. There were some plays it was completely ignored because Trevor saw that one-on-one deep and he just went for it. Right. So I'm not going to beat up the wide receivers in this case. I'm giving the wide receivers a B.
Yeah, I gave him a B+. Thank goodness for T. Higgins. He seems to be, there to play every week. He's getting 100+ yards every week, making some big plays. Obviously had a big touchdown here as well. Game-winning touchdown it turns out to be. The other wide receivers did a good job for the most part. Like you said, they're running the routes they're supposed to run, and a lot of them were open. It's just the fact that we couldn't get them the ball before we were sacked or, running for our lives or something like that. We did have a huge play deflated, after Cornell Powell kind of tripped in the open field. I think that one was going for a huge play, so that was kind of frustrating. I know Cornell was frustrated with himself, so we won't beat him up too bad over that. But I gave the wide receivers a B plus for the game.
For tight ends, moving to them, Chalk was really the only guy on the field. It seems like Jalen Lay has, kind of disappeared. I don't know if he's going to be redshirted or not, but he was played a lot more earlier.
Yeah.
Now you really don't see him. Chalk is the only guy, and they've actually started kind of let Chalk loose and let him go run routes more than he did at the beginning of the season. He had 2 catches for 16 yards, which is respectable. He got a couple of first downs, so I was proud of him for that. There were times where, he needed to be blocking, and he wasn't because he was running deep, and Clemson was just one guy short blocking. And so it's things like that really hurt Clemson, I believe. But I'm giving, J.C. Chalk, I'm giving him a B.
Yeah, you're right. He's kind of the only one you really saw out there the other day. I gave him a B as well. He had a couple catches. He had a couple more targets, I believe. I think they tried to go deep to him one time. Maybe it's the one you're talking about with the non-pass interference call. I like that our offensive coordinators are kind of starting to, get the tight end involved. I've always been a huge proponent of the tight end. I think they're one of the most valuable weapons on the field.
Over to the offensive line, I'm giving them a C. Giving up a sack, 3 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hurries. Ooh, not good. Obviously, as I said before, that side, Akram and Cervinka couldn't run the ball over there to the right side. Had to run to the left side, had to roll out to the left side. It was pretty difficult doing anything running-wise or ground game-wise on the right side of the field. Then you got like John Simpson and Jackson Carman doing false starts all the time. And when J.C. Chalk was blocking, we'll make him a blocker at that point. He got a false start. I mean, it was just really frustrating for the offensive line. Not a good game. Then you have John Simpson coming out after the game a day later and saying, well, if we would have just ran the ball more. I believe when I looked at the box score, they ran more than they passed in that game, and they didn't get anything going. Now, I will give John Simpson credit. Travis Etienne had more success on his side of the ball.
I actually gave him a D. This was not a good performance for offensive line. It wasn't even a decent performance, if you ask me. For all the reasons you talked about, Trevor Lawrence a sack and getting hurried all the time. I mean, the 6 false starts, I believe, is what we had. That's insane. That is very uncharacteristic for a Clemson team for sure. There were linebackers and defensive linemen running untouched to Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. It was just a really difficult day. All things considered. John Simpson, talks about we should run the ball more. Well, yeah, but you're going to have to talk to your line and get them to quit false starting. 3rd and 6 is not a running down. It seemed to be what we were in a lot. 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, that kind of thing. Yeah, you don't run in those downs. Sorry, you pass. So if you want to run more, play a little more discipline, and we will. And I think they'll get that fixed. I don't think they're gonna do that. I don't expect that again for the rest of the year, to be honest with you.
So let's move over to the defense. The defensive line, I was, iffy on what they did, but they had a lot of good stops, okay? Defensive line, 3 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss. Tyler Davis is still doing really well, being a true freshman in the middle. Jordan Williams came up with a couple of good stops. Justin Foster, Xavier Thomas at the end of the game for sure. But when the game was on the line in the red zone, hey, they stopped them. I didn't give them an A because at the end of the game, they stopped them on 4th down earlier in the game, but then they had 2 4th down conversions later in the game. And I was disappointed in that a little bit with the defensive line.
I actually gave the defensive line a C. I didn't think they got anywhere near the penetration they should have got for a really, really young offensive line against North Carolina. North Carolina, I think we're starting, 2 freshmen and 3 sophomores, something like that. They had a couple injuries, to key players on their offensive line. I thought the Brent Venables defense was going to absolutely ravage these guys. And they just didn't. They let UNC capitalize on a lot of 3rd down plays to sustain drives and kind of keep the defense out there and tired. I was just kind of disappointed. Obviously, they flashed the potential that they've showed you all season long. But for the most part, I really thought they were going to dominate this game, and they just didn't. So I gave them a C.
For the linebackers, I gave, when you have Isaiah Simmons, it's kind of like you get an automatic B at least.
Right.
There's nothing lower than a B when you have Isaiah Simmons. He was, again, all over the place. 10 tackles, led the team, 1 sack, 2.5 for a loss, 1 pass deflection. The only linebacker that outplayed Isaiah Simmons was actually on the other team. I give the linebackers a B. Like I said, I don't think you really can go lower than a B when you have Isaiah Simmons.
I have the exact same reason. I gave him a B as well because of Isaiah Simmons. I thought Skowski played okay. He didn't play a really bad game. I think a lot of people remember Skowski getting held on their kind of, stop and go touchdown on AJ Terrell at the very beginning. He was kind of getting held coming off the edge and was right by Sam Howell. Probably could have made the play, but no flag, no big deal. It happens. They're not going to get called every time. But Chad Smith, I didn't think played a great game. I will talk about him a little bit more later. But, when you have Isaiah Simmons, you can't get less than a B, so I gave him a B.
Over to the cornerbacks, man, they started the game off bad, and A.J. Terrell, man, burnt on the first or second play of the game on a double move. Not only was it a double move, Al, but the wide receiver, I believe it was Brown, waved his hand in the air to the quarterback before the play to say, "Hey, I'm open. I'm going to be open." You're going to be open before the play even starts. Ooh, ouch. That is no good. I know it wasn't the first play or second play of the game. I think it was further on. But either way, because they were further down the field, I know for sure. But, man, to wave your hand like that against A.J. Terrell, I think it was DK or Mario fell down like just a nasty, ridiculous-looking slip. And some people were complaining about the turf being so hot and being kind of more slippery. Maybe that was the case, but man, whoever that was, I think it was DK, took a huge slip, a dive on the ground, allowing for Michael Carter to get a huge run and then set up a touchdown there. AJ let his man go and opened up for, I think it was Corrales to get a touchdown. He was guarding Corrales. Corrales went across the middle. AJ, everybody was playing man on the other side of the field. Everybody was playing man. AJ was not. And then it caused Muse and Simmons to get confused to who to guard. They ended up guarding the same player, and Corrales got open and scored a touchdown. The cornerbacks for sure didn't really, to be such an elite cornerback group, we love them. They're so great. They rarely ever throw to them. To then turn around and do those kind of things and have those kind of big play mistakes, I can't give you a good grade. I got to give you a C.
I actually gave them a B minus. So they're going to like me a little better than you this week, which is just fine with me actually, because I'm usually the bad guy. But no, I thought they played okay. Like you said, they had its problem. The problem is you're going to have that one stick in your mind. Okay, that AJ Terrell got beat on the double move, and that's fine. That happens. As a matter of fact, it's happened before this year. I don't know necessarily with AJ Terrell, but it's happened this year, and those balls have been overthrown. We've been really lucky. Sam Howell hit him in stride, and it was a touchdown. Plain and simple. It's one play. It happens a lot, especially on double moves. That's especially with an aggressive defense like we are. You're susceptible to those kind of things. And you know what? AJ Terrell is a great player. He will come back even stronger from this, so I'm not even worried about it at all. But I gave him a B minus.
Going over to the safeties, again, Nolan Turner all over the place. Man, Nolan Turner is like the Hunter Renfrow for defense. He's doing so great. He was in on that fourth down stop that Clemson got. Kayvon Wallace was in on a bunch of tackles. Tanner Muse didn't help on the AJ double move. If you notice, if you go back and look at that double move, what we were talking about, Tanner Muse stood still. But then Nolan Turner was in on the 2-point conversion. He stayed with that pitch guy to the outside. I was really proud of him there to hold that off and stop the 2-point conversion, or help stop the 2-point conversion, because there's 4 guys involved in that. But I give the safeties a B.
Yeah, I actually gave him a B as well. Muse almost single-handedly got this group a failing grade because he went up and tried to injure Isaiah Simmons on a botched interception. All right, that is just my heart sank. I saw Isaiah Simmons on the ground. I was, this cannot be good. This cannot be good. Of all the players in the world, UNC went deep. I don't know if you remember this player or not. UNC went deep, and Muse kind of came over the top. They both had the angle on the ball. They kind of ran into each other, and it was just ugly. It looked bad. I don't know if that's the injury that took Muse out of the game. Obviously, Muse was in the second half in street clothes, from what I remember. But I didn't see too much negative about the safeties for the most part in the game, so I gave him a B for this. That's right.
And here's the last thing that we added in, because people were revolting that we didn't talk about special teams. But with Joe Ngata, 2 good kickoff returns, over 30 yards each. I enjoyed watching him. I think that was good that he brought the ball out. BT Potter, he did miss a field goal, kind of shanked it. But Spires had a 54-yard punt, Al. A lot of what happened in that game was because both punters were doing really well. But we got to be very thankful for Spires being very consistent this year. And, man, knocking a 54-yarder, which his average was 38 yards last year. Yep. So I'm very proud of Spires and what he's done to kind of solidify his starting position there. With Joe Ngata, minus, give me a minus a BT Potter miss, but with Joe Ngata, and Spires doing well. I give him a B.
I actually gave him a B as well. I liked a couple returns from Ngata. I haven't been super impressed from what I've seen from him so far this year. I think he gets started kind of slow. He's more of a gliding type of runner than he is a quick guy. But he's got speed to him for sure. And he's actually showed a couple of pretty good moves. And he had a couple of great returns in the UNC game, so I was really proud of him there. Like you said, Spires is never going to blow you away with his punting average. That's for sure. But all we need is consistency. We don't need somebody to punt 60 yards every time. You stay over 40, you're kind of stay in our good graces for sure. And I think he's done that for the most part. Like you said, he had a pretty good game. Really disappointed in the missed field goal by BT Potter. Obviously, that would have saved a lot of nerves for some Tiger fans had he made that, because the game wouldn't have been so close at the end. But yeah, that's a tough miss. I mean, it was a relatively short field goal. I think it was about 40 yards, something like that. It's something that he should definitely make, and it's something we're going to need as a weapon going forward. But, not a bad effort overall, pretty good. Hopefully he gets that fixed. I gave him a B.
All right, everyone. Well, we have to take a quick break again. Stay with us. When we get back, we'll give you our Week 6 picks against the spread. And remember to check us out, The Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al, on Facebook, YouTube, and The Roar Radio. You can listen to us there every Thursday night at 8 p.m. We'll be back right after this.